Imagine waking up and discovering that half of the world had already been given away. Not after a war, not after a conquest, but with a signature. Throughout history, a handful of treaties have changed the course of civilization forever. They redrew borders, created empires, and shaped the lives of billions of people. Welcome to History Decoded. Today, we're starting with one of the most unbelievable agreements ever signed, the Treaty of Tordesillas. The year is 1494. Just 2 years earlier, Christopher Columbus had returned from his first voyage across the Atlantic. Europe suddenly realized there was an entire world waiting to be claimed. Spain wanted it, Portugal wanted it, and both kingdoms were ready to fight. But instead of sending armies, they turned to someone even more powerful, the Pope. Pope Alexander VI proposed a solution. An imaginary line would be drawn through the Atlantic Ocean. Everything west of the line would belong to Spain. Everything east would belong to Portugal. Think about that for a second. 2 European kingdoms, dividing lands they had never seen, ignoring the millions of people already living there. 1 year later, Spain and Portugal negotiated again. The line was moved farther west. That small adjustment seemed insignificant, but it changed history forever, because part of modern-day Brazil now fell on Portugal's side of the line. That's why, today, Brazil speaks Portuguese, while almost every other country in South America speaks Spanish. The consequences didn't stop there. Spanish explorers conquered vast empires across the Americas. Portugal built a global trading network stretching from Brazil to Africa to India and beyond. Gold, silver, spices, and unimaginable wealth flowed into Europe. At the same time, entire civilizations collapsed. Millions of indigenous people died from disease, warfare, and forced labor. Cultures that had existed for centuries were transformed in just a few generations, all because of one agreement, signed in a small Spanish town called Tordesillas. What's even more unbelievable, other European powers like England, France, and the Netherlands simply refused to recognize the treaty. They ignored it completely, and soon, the race for global empires began all over again. The Treaty of Tordesillas didn't just divide land. It changed languages, it changed cultures, it changed economies, and it changed the map of the world forever. But this was only the beginning, because the next treaty wouldn't divide continents. It would redefine what a nation even is. It changed what a country even was. For centuries, Europe had been torn apart by religious wars. Catholics fought Protestants, kingdoms fought kingdoms, entire cities were destroyed. Then, in 1648, after 30 years of bloodshed, exhausted leaders met in the German cities of Münster and Osnabrück. The result? The Peace of Westphalia. At first glance, it looked like just another peace agreement. It wasn't. For the first time, Europe officially accepted a revolutionary idea. Every state had the right to govern itself. No emperor, no pope, no foreign king could simply claim authority over another independent nation. This idea became known as state sovereignty. It may sound normal today, but back then, it changed everything. Countries could decide their own religion, control their own borders, and manage their own affairs without outside interference. The Holy Roman Empire never recovered. The Dutch Republic and Switzerland gained formal independence, and Europe slowly shifted from medieval empires to the modern system of nation-states. Even today, the United Nations, international law, and diplomatic relations are built on principles that trace back to Westphalia. One treaty ended one of Europe's deadliest wars and quietly created the world order we still live in. But the next treaty would punish a defeated nation so harshly that it helped ignite another world war. Germany had lost the war, But what happened next changed history. In 1919, the victorious Allies gathered at the Palace of Versailles. Their goal seemed simple: end World War I. Instead, they created one of the most controversial treaties ever signed, the Treaty of Versailles. Germany wasn't invited to negotiate. It was handed the treaty and ordered to sign. The country accepted full responsibility for the war. It lost territory, colonies, and most of its military. Then came enormous reparations. The economy collapsed, inflation exploded, millions lost their savings. Across Germany, anger turned into hatred. One politician promised to fix everything: Adolf Hitler. He vowed to destroy the Treaty of Versailles, rebuild Germany, and restore its pride. Millions followed him. Just 20 years later, Europe was at war again. A treaty that was supposed to secure peace helped pave the way for World War II. And the final agreement on our list would draw borders that still shape the Middle East today. The final agreement on our list was never meant to be public. It was a secret deal. A deal that would reshape the Middle East for generations. The Sykes-Picot Agreement. It was 1916. World War I was still raging, and the Ottoman Empire was beginning to collapse before the war had even ended. Britain and France secretly decided how they would divide its lands, using a map and a ruler, without asking the millions of people who actually lived there. Britain would control areas including Iraq and Palestine. France would take Syria and Lebanon. The borders weren't drawn around cultures, religions, or ethnic groups. They were drawn to serve imperial interests. When the agreement was revealed, many Arabs felt betrayed. They had been promised independence for fighting against the Ottoman Empire. Instead, their future had already been decided behind closed doors. More than a century later, many of those borders still exist, and many of the region's conflicts can be traced back, at least in part, to decisions made in 1916. One secret agreement changed the fate of an entire region. 4 treaties, 4 signatures, and a world that would never be the same again.